I'm a rider for life. The type of bitch you never find in your life, and she chose me. So I'ma make that rider my wife. She's so G. And when it comes to solid advice, she don't blink. Just
everybody,
How y'all
this
doing?
is my daddy.
That's right.
I love boo-boo-boo-boo-boo.
This was one of his last moments with his daughter Anaya, his everything. He called his mother every single day. He wrote over 300 songs. He was building a future, until the woman he loved stood next to his grieving mother, handing out missing person flyers, knowing she had butchered him. This is the tragic story of Stephen Coleman, a 32-year-old father, dedicated family man, and aspiring rapper from New Orleans who went by the stage name Slim da Don.
5 years in August. I don't miss a day, a month, go and bring flowers. I had to bury what they found.
August 16th, 2017. That's the day everything changed for the Coleman family. That's the day their world shattered into a million pieces, quite literally mirroring what happened to Stephen himself. While most of Baytown, Texas was preparing for Hurricane Harvey, boarding up windows, stockpiling supplies, evacuating to higher ground, something far more sinister was unfolding inside apartment 302 at the Briarwood Village Apartments on James Bowie Drive. Stephen Coleman had just returned home from work at ExxonMobil, tired from another day of labor, completely unaware that he would never see another sunrise. He had no idea that the woman he lived with, 30-year-old Sierra Alexis Sutton, was about to commit an act so heinous, so calculated, so utterly void of humanity that it would haunt investigators for years to come. According to court documents and police reports, after an argument between the couple, the nature of which remains disputed to this day, Stephen went to sleep. He closed his eyes, perhaps thinking they would work things out in the morning, perhaps replaying the argument in his mind, perhaps simply exhausted. He never woke up. While Stephen slept, Sierra Sutton shot him once in the head with a handgun. One shot. What happened next wasn't done in a panic. It wasn't a heat-of-the-moment decision. What Sierra Sutton did over the following days required planning, coldness, and a level of detachment that most of us cannot even begin to fathom. Using a machete, Sutton dismembered Stephen Coleman's body in the bathroom and kitchen of their one-bedroom apartment. She later told investigators that she did this because his body was simply too heavy for her to move in one piece. Think about that for a moment. And during all of this, during these unimaginable acts taking place in that small apartment, Sierra's 10-year-old daughter Trinity was in the living room. The child heard noises. She knew something was happening, but she was never formally interviewed by investigators, a fact that Stephen's family would later cite as one of many failures in this case. But Sutton wasn't finished. Using Stephen Coleman's own credit card, the card of the man she had just killed, Sutton went to Walmart. Security footage captured her purchasing duct tape and sheets, the very item she would use to wrap Stephen's remains before disposing of them. Over the next several days, Sutton systematically distributed Stephen's remains across multiple dumpsters throughout the Briarwood Village apartment complex. Each trip to a dumpster was another chance to stop, another opportunity to feel remorse, another moment where her humanity could have surfaced. It never did. And then, as Hurricane Harvey approached and the chaos of the natural disaster consumed everyone's attention, those dumpsters were emptied. The garbage trucks came and went, hauling their contents to the Chambers County landfill. And with them went the evidence of Sierra Sutton's crime, buried under tons of debris and waste. But here's what makes this case even more disturbing, even more gut-wrenching for the Coleman family. On August 18th, 2017, just 2 days after she murdered him, Sierra Sutton filed a missing person report with the Baytown Police Department. She claimed that Stephen had simply left, that he walked out to go find his daughter. She played the role of the concerned girlfriend to perfection, her voice probably trembling with fake worry as she described his disappearance to officers. And they believed her. Why wouldn't they? She seemed genuinely distraught. She seemed like a woman desperate to find the man she loved. Neighbors would later report that they had witnessed fights between the couple, including one disturbing incident where Stephen allegedly had a belt around Sutton's neck.
They were like in the middle of the parking lot, kind of, and he had her pinned down.
Pinned down on the ground, what was he doing?
He had a belt around her neck.
This detail would later be used in some media portrayals to paint Stephen as an abuser, something his family vehemently denies and attributes to Sutton's manipulation of the narrative even before the murder. But in those days following Stephen's disappearance, before the truth came out, Sierra Sutton put on the performance of her life. She didn't just file a police report and disappear. No, she went much further than that. She actively joined Stephen's mother, Corla Coleman, and his brother Chris in their desperate search efforts. Donald Wooten, a neighbor at the Briarwood Village Apartments, would later recall his chilling interaction with Sutton during this period. When he asked her about Stephen's whereabouts, her reaction seemed genuine.
I asked her about him, and she seemed kind of shocked. She goes, "Why are you asking me that?" I said, "Well, I heard that he was missing for a while." And she kind of carried on like she didn't know anything about it.
She appeared shocked that anyone was even asking her about it. She acted as though she had no idea why people were concerned. The manipulation, the lies, they came so easily to her. Meanwhile, investigators were beginning to piece together a very different story. When they processed the apartment, the crime scene that Sutton had been living in, sleeping in, maintaining as if nothing had happened, they found blood. Not just a little blood, but traces of it in multiple locations. Blood in the bedroom near the bedside where Stephen had been sleeping when he was shot. Blood on the bathroom floor and in the sink where the unthinkable had occurred.
His wife killed him, shot him in his head, and then cut his pieces of his body.
Man, it's sad though, man. How can you just chop somebody up like that?
Blood in the kitchen, blood in Sutton's Jeep. Each spot of blood trace was evidence of the violence that had unfolded in that apartment, evidence that Sutton had tried to clean up but couldn't completely erase. Forensic teams worked methodically, using luminol to reveal what the human eye couldn't see, documenting everything, building a case, and then came the discovery that would crack the case wide open. On August 22, 2017, just 6 days after Stephen Coleman was murdered, sanitation workers at the Chambers County landfill made a horrifying find. Among the mountains of garbage and debris, amid the chaos of Hurricane Harvey's aftermath, they discovered a human torso. Just a torso. No head, no limbs. Just the central portion of what had once been a living, breathing human being. The timeline matched. The location matched. The dumpsters from the Briarwood Village Apartments had been emptied to this very landfill. This was Stephen Coleman, or at least this was part of him. The rest of his remains would never be recovered, lost forever in that massive landfill, scattered among countless tons of waste and storm debris. DNA testing would later confirm what investigators already suspected. The torso belonged to Stephen Coleman, the missing man whose girlfriend had been so helpful in the search efforts. And suddenly, everything Sierra Sutton had said, everything she had done, every tear she may have shed while standing next to Stephen's mother, it all took on a different, far more sinister meaning. Despite multiple neighbors living in close proximity to apartment 302, nobody reported hearing a gunshot. Not a single person called the police to report the sound of gunfire on the night of August 16th. This detail has fueled speculation among the Coleman family that perhaps Sutton used a silencer, or that perhaps she didn't act alone. The family has long maintained that Sutton had help, pointing to the fact that multiple neighbors witnessed Sutton being assisted by 2 men in moving furniture out of Stephen's apartment in the days following his murder. Who were these men? Were they aware of what had happened? Were they accomplices in the crime or the cover-up? These questions remain unanswered, adding another layer of frustration to an already traumatic situation for the Coleman family. But the walls were closing in on Sierra Sutton. As detectives dug deeper, they discovered something crucial. Sutton had been confessing, not to police, but to friends. Multiple people would later come forward to say that Sutton had admitted to them what she had done. She told them about the argument. She told them about shooting Stephen. She told them about dismembering his body because it was too heavy to move. She told them everything. Why would she confess to friends but continue lying to police and to Stephen's family? Perhaps she needed to tell someone, to share the burden of what she had done. Perhaps she thought these people could be trusted to keep her secret. Perhaps she was seeking some form of validation or understanding for her actions. Whatever her reasoning, these confessions would ultimately seal her fate. Armed with witness statements, forensic evidence, and the recovered remains, detectives attempted to interview Sutton again, but she knew they were onto her. She could feel the investigation tightening around her like a noose, so she ran. Sutton fled Texas and headed to Louisiana, perhaps hoping to disappear, perhaps thinking she could start over somewhere else, perhaps believing she could outrun the consequences of her actions. But in 2017, with modern forensics, interstate cooperation, and the resources of law enforcement agencies across multiple states, running was futile. On September 14, 2017, nearly a month after Stephen Coleman's murder, U.S. Marshals and Jefferson Parish Sheriff's deputies caught up with Sierra Alexis Sutton in Metairie, Louisiana. Her brief time as a fugitive was over. She was arrested and held without bond at the Jefferson Parish Correctional Center, facing extradition back to Texas to answer for what she had done. During her extradition hearing, Sutton waived her rights to fight the transfer, facilitating her prompt return to Harris County. Perhaps she knew that resistance was pointless. Perhaps she was simply resigned to her fate. Either way, she was soon back in Texas, sitting in the Harris County Jail, formally charged with first-degree murder. The evidence against her was overwhelming. There were confessions to multiple friends. There was the forensic evidence, blood throughout the apartment, Stephen's credit card used to buy disposal supplies, the timeline of the dumpster usage matching the landfill discovery. There were the lies, the deception, the flight to Louisiana. Any competent defense attorney looking at this case would have understood taking this to trial was a gamble Sierra Sutton was almost certain to lose. And so, though no public trial transcripts exist, the overwhelming evidence suggests that Sutton entered into a plea agreement with prosecutors. No jury was selected, no witnesses testified in open court, no dramatic courtroom confrontation between the Coleman family and their son's killer ever took place. In February 2019, in the 180th District Court under Judge Deshaun Jones, Sierra Alexis Sutton was convicted of murder and sentenced to 45 years in prison. 45 years. That's the price she'll pay for taking Stephen Coleman's life, for destroying his family, for robbing his daughter of her father, for stealing away a son, a brother, a friend, a talented artist who will never get to share his music with the world. Texas law, Sutton must serve at least half of her sentence before she can even be considered for parole. That means she won't be eligible until around 2040, more than 20 years from now. Her maximum sentence date is September 14, 2062, assuming she never receives parole. She's currently incarcerated at the Christina Melton Crane Unit in Gatesville, Texas, a medium-security women's facility. But here's what adds insult to injury for the Coleman family. Despite the horrific nature of the crime, the dismemberment, the disposal of human remains, the fact that a 10-year-old child was present in the apartment, Sutton faced no additional charges. No charges for tampering with a corpse, no charges for child endangerment, just the murder charge and the 45-year sentence. Prosecutors likely focused solely on the murder charge because it carries the harshest penalty and because adding additional charges wouldn't significantly increase the sentence. It was a practical decision, a strategic choice to ensure a conviction and a lengthy prison term. But for the Coleman family, it felt like the system failed to fully acknowledge the complete scope of Sutton's actions, the full depth of her crimes. Every month, without fail, Corla Coleman visits her son's grave at Mount Olivet Cemetery in Louisiana. She brings flowers, she talks to him, she mourns the life he should have had, the grandson he never got to be a full-time father to, the music he never got to create, the phone calls she'll never receive. But here's the heartbreaking reality.
5 years in August. I don't miss a day going a month, go and bring flowers. I had to bury what they found.
She didn't even get to bury her whole son. Only partial remains were recovered. The rest of Stephen Coleman remains lost in that landfill, forever scattered among countless tons of waste and storm debris. In November 2022, 5 years after Stephen's murder, the Coleman family held a press conference. They stood before cameras and reporters and demanded that the exploitation stop. They denounced the documentaries. They called out the inaccuracies. But perhaps the most poignant detail of all comes from before the murder. Friends of Stephen Coleman recalled that he had warned them if anything ever happened to him, Sierra Sutton was responsible. He saw something in her, something dangerous, something that ultimately proved to be his undoing. He had a premonition of his own death, and tragically, he was right. Instead, on an August night in 2017, all of that was stolen from him by someone he trusted, someone he loved, someone who showed not a shred of remorse for the unimaginable act she committed.
What's up out there, you hear me? Slim the Dawn, it's the world premiere of Where Did the Music Go, you dig? Like I said, bro, there's a lot of things in the making I'm working on, you feel me? I just want to thank y'all for taking your time out today to come check me out, you know what I'm saying? World premiere, be easy on the mix down. Powerline Crime Cartel, 100 plus. Fuck, man. Oh, man, I can't ride how a nigga be. Man, I can't ride to this, bro. You know what? We wag. I'm not lying. All the bitches wag, man. I got some shit for me here. I don't know what that shit was, just nothing.
Do you think Sierra was pushed by revenge or was just plain evil? Let me know in the comments section below. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.